Okay, is there enough purple going on here? I love it. Good morning. When I discovered what the theme was for this month, savoring all that is, naturally I thought of green chili, and right? And that led me to think of a theme about sowing, growing, and harvesting our good. So to introduce that theme and to sort of do it the way that we Native American people do it, I'll tell you a little story about that. This story comes from the Tuscarora people, and it's the legend of the corn spirit. Long ago, there was a village, and year after year, they had corn harvests that were wonderful and big and generous. And the people became overly confident, overproud. Consequently, they became careless. They quit weeding their corn. They quit harvesting in the right way. They trampled their stalks. They threw the corn to the dogs. They let the children trample it and become dirty. They didn't dig holes deep enough for their baskets. Their baskets weren't weaved tightly enough. And worst of all, they forgot to thank Creator. They forgot to be grateful for each corn harvest, because in their minds they thought, we'll always have more, and if we run out of corn, we'll have buffalo, we'll have deer, we'll have fish in the streams. And the people figured if the corn didn't hold out, somehow that would be taken care of, but like I said, they forgot to be grateful. And one year they harvested very little. They didn't know exactly why, but they harvested very little, and the birds ate what was left over. The dogs chewed apart the stalks and the cobs. So they took what they had, and they realized it wasn't enough to actually store. But what they did store, they put in baskets that were woven kind of loose, and they weren't very deep. But one man alone remembered to take care of his corn. He hoed all the weeds out. He wove tight baskets. He dug deep holes for his granaries. And most importantly, he remembered to be grateful. This man's name was Dayo Hagwenda. Meanwhile, Dayo Hagwenda kind of felt sad about what was going on in the village. And he didn't understand why people were being so careless and ungrateful. So he walked out into the forest, deep into the forest. And he came upon this path he'd never seen before, and he followed that path as he thought about things. And he came upon this hut built out of these old elm branches. And it was built upon this mound of earth in the traditional way, but around it there were weeds, and it was overgrown, and vines had taken over. And he heard an old man weeping. And he said, "Grandfather, why are you weeping?" This man said, "I am weeping because the people no longer care for me." And he said, "Well, why is your house overgrown with weeds?" And he said, "Because the people no longer tend after me." "Why are your clothes ripped and torn?" He said, "Because the people threw me to the dogs." "Why are your clothes so dirty?" "Because your people let the children trample all over my clothes and me." And he said, "Your people no longer need me. They don't want me anymore. They don't honor me. Therefore, I have to go." Dayo Hagwenda knew this was just something that couldn't happen to his people. And he said, "Grandfather, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Please forgive our people. How about if I honor you? I still respect you. I still care for the corn. I still tend and weed you and water you. What about if I honor you and go back to my people and tell them to honor you in the right ways, in the traditional ways, and to give thanks every day?" And this man, it turns out, was the corn spirit. And he said, "Oh, if you would do that for me, grandson, I would stay. I would stay. If you teach the people once again how to care for me, I promise that I will be around. I will help you see a plentiful harvest." So Dayo Hagwenda hurried back to his people. When he got to the village, the people were saying, they were crying and moaning and saying, "We're going to starve. We have no food left. Our corn has all been eaten by the mice." What's left over has been eaten by the birds. We have no food. We went out hunting. There was no game. We went fishing. There were no fish. We're going to starve and die. Tayo Hagwendo said, no, I've been into the forest and I met grandfather. And I told him about what's going on. And he said, if we honor him, that he will promise to be with us and be generous again. They immediately knew this was the corn spirit, of course. And so they said, you know, they had a light come on and they realized we've neglected him. We've neglected the most important thing. We've forgotten to be grateful. So once again, they had Tayo Hagwenda said, you know what, I buried some corn. And so he went to dig up his corn, and sure enough, not only was all the corn there like he had originally put, but there was more. There was more corn that he remembered, and he kept saying, I don't remember putting this much corn, but I'm glad there's plenty. And there was enough also left over to plant and sow that corn. So they went to work sowing that corn, and this time they sang and danced and dug deep holes and put fish in the ground as fertilizer. But most importantly, they were thankful, and they knew that you could harvest it when the corn stalks become the size of a little squirrel's ear. That's when you knew that it was going to grow. So he said, I spoke with the corn spirit, and he'll remain with us as long as we honor him. Then they remembered each year that it happened to give thanks, and they taught their children now how to be grateful, how to grow, and how to sow. And so it is to this day. Thank you. I've always loved the tradition of storytelling of Native people. It always ties into such a good moral, to such a good story, and it usually always revolves around being grateful for what you have. That's why I like to start out with them. But like in this corn story about how people had neglected and how forgotten to be grateful, that also ties into what we must also do to sow, to grow, and to harvest our own good. Now, who has bought green chili and put it away for this year so far? Hands, let me see. Anybody? Okay, good. Because we know. We know that if we don't get it now, we know that if we don't roast it and put it away properly and put it in the freezer, we won't have any left. So what we're doing by then is we're really tending the gardens of our mind. And we have to learn to nurture and to grow exactly what we want to grow. Now, most of us want to experience good things in life, right? Right? But we also know those people who seem to want to experience nothing but heartache. You know, those people that say, nothing ever goes my way, nothing works out for me. You know, that would be great if I could win that thing, but I have the worst luck in the world. And even my neighbor, God bless her, she wears a little Bluetooth, and she tells me, I know that one of these days this is going to give me cancer. And I think, no, you know, whatever. Don't say that, you know. And I want to teach her about the science of mind and how we have to guard our words as if they're seeds, because the way the way I think about it is that Creator hears everything that we're saying. Everything that we say is an affirmation. Every word that we speak is an affirmation. Every thought that we have is an affirmation. Now, the secret, of course, is to affirm only what you really want to have happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to sow, how to grow, and how to harvest your good. Because, well, just let me see a show of hands in the opposite way. Is there anyone who wants to harvest bad? No? Okay, well, good. Then let's not plant that bad. I like the way that Ernest Holmes says it. He says, every negative statement we make to or about ourselves is a denial of good. Every thought which identifies us with failure is a denial of the gift of life. Every time someone says, I am poor, I am weak, I am miserable, I am unhappy, they are affirming an opposite of good. And in some degree, we must experience that which we affirm. They are affirming an opposite of good, and in some degree, we must experience that which we affirm. And Reverend Bonnie's reading this morning was absolutely perfect. Holmes is talking about if we want to expect something good in our life, something to manifest that is good, that is great, that is positive, well, guess what? It's our responsibility it's our responsibility to make sure that we speak that, because it's not going to happen kind of accidentally, right? If you're waiting around for something good to happen, well, you might be getting more of the gift of waiting. Corinthians, I like to go back to the Old Testament, and there's a part that says, the point is, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Such simple words, really. But even then, they're speaking about the responsibility of reaping what you sow. And we, as Science of Mind people, know that not only do we have to do that, but we're responsible for what we do sow. So when you think about it, who's doing the sowing? Well, it's us, isn't it? Who's doing the sowing? We're sowing each moment with every thought, every word, every action. Every time we affirm or make a declaration about ourselves or someone else, we're planting that seed. And I had a beautiful reminder of that this morning. I was back there and I was having a little trouble trying to get the words of the Tuscarora tribe out. And so I said, I can't speak this morning. Bonnie reminds me, do you want to affirm that? Are you sure? I was like, no, I don't. You're right. Thank you for that reminder, And so that's exactly right. And so it's good to have friends who help remind you, are you sure you wanted to? I have friends that tell me, man, I'd love some time off. And I say, add in the best way for the highest good. Because, I'd love a month off from work. Well, what could happen? You could break your leg or something else could happen. So affirm it in a good way, in the best way for the highest good. And by peppering those statements, we're actually seeding those. And what I'm going to do in a moment is give you 4 steps about how to do what I'm talking about. It's a 4-step process that I came up with. So how much care are we giving to our garden on a daily basis? How much care are we giving to our dreams on a daily basis? Are we the kind of people that have affirmations on our, and we all know these people, we might be some of them, affirmations on your bathroom mirror, on your refrigerator, in your car as reminders? How much care are we giving those on a daily basis? Have we, like the Tuscarora tribe, have we come to the point where we just take advantage, we take them for granted, like they're automatically going to do this? One of my favorite affirmations comes from the teacher Abraham, and it said, everything is always working out for me. Such a simple and powerful thing. Everything is always working out for me. And I have that in my mirror, and I make sure every single morning and every day I say, everything is always working out for me, no matter what the situation might actually be, which is what Ernest Holmes has taught so often: turn entirely away from the problem. Don't give any more attention to the problem. We as Science of Mind people, we as New Thought people, we as affirming people know that we do create our own reality with our words, with our thoughts. So turn entirely away. That's a hard thing to try to teach some people to actually do. I'm a musician, and I know a lot of other musicians, and one of the common things that we hear from other musicians, I don't know if this is true for you, they say, oh, it's so hard, I'm a starving musician, it's so hard to make a living as a musician. Do you hear people saying that, Mary Lynn? Yeah. See, and I tell my musician friends, don't say that unless you want that to be your reality. And then I have a really good friend who was, she's played on a few of my albums, and she says, but it's just too hard. It's too hard to make it. That's just the way it really is. That's reality, Randy. That's the way it is. And I've been trying to slowly teach her. Well, so I'm always trying to get her to come here, so she can listen. That if that's how you want it to continue, guess what? Keep on saying that kind of thing. So whenever my friends say, well, we have to help out you. You're a starving artist. And I say, have you seen my Facebook post? Do I look starving? I've got all these great food posts everywhere. So I don't let them get away with that. Okay. Say if you're going through life and things aren't quite working out the way that you want them to do. Say that there's areas of your life that could be improved, which all of us have, of course. It's part of the condition of being human. Well, stop and take a look. Everything you're experiencing now is coming from what you've already sown. Now you're harvesting that, whether you knew it or whether you knew it or not. And if your life is like this, if this is happening, what's probably happened is that you've planted the seeds of doubt. Now, what do the seeds of doubt grow up to be in the garden of your good? Anybody? Weeds, that's exactly right. Good one. They grow up to be nasty weeds. And so then we have to go on there. We have to pluck them out. I was on the road for, I don't know, a really long time. I think this most recent time I was gone for about 12 days. And I guess we got, Noah's flood in Las Cruces the time that I was gone. Because I came back and I couldn't find my backyard. There was so many weeds, And that was neglect on my part. I should have had a friend bring some goats over or something, to harvest those weeds. But yeah, so if you if your life is full of weeds and obstacles and impediments and that kind of thing that you don't want to experience, well, you've sown those seeds. We sow those seeds. Therefore, we can get rid of those weeds, tend our garden, and it's not as overwhelming as you might think, and like I'll show you in just a few minutes. But we already know as religious science people that thoughts are things, right? Thoughts are real things. They carry weight. They have a finite energy that is much faster than the speed of light. They're instantaneous. We also know that words that we create, that we talk about ourselves and others, that they create our reality. And I really like the way that Florence Scovel Shinn put it. Do you know her? Florence Scovel Shinn. She was in the early part of last century. She's a wonderful author and a writer. Well, her most famous book is called A Game of Life and How to Play It. And this is what she says: the game of life is a game of boomerangs. Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy. Bam, where did that come from? I really need some time off. Boom, you got it. Okay, so now I want to talk about how we sow and nurture and harvest our good. And those are three important words: sow, the act of planting; nurture, the art of tending; and harvesting, the art of acceptance. How do we tend the gardens of our mind to create in our reality a world that we want to experience? Well, in my experience, it's a four-step process. And for those of you who are visual people, those of you who meditate, go into your minds, and you can automatically see that garden with its fence and everything, this is going to be really easy for you. And if you don't do that, if you're not one of those visual people, it might help to create a pie chart or a medicine wheel with 4 parts that I'm going to give you here, or even just a piece of paper, 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of have like a spreadsheet out there and the areas. And that's really basic stuff. When you write stuff down, when you visualize stuff down, you affirm into spirit, into creation, what you want to be experiencing. Now here's the most interesting part, is that the universe, spirit, creator, doesn't know good or bad. So like, say that you put into it that you'd like to be living in a house because you hate your house, you want a new house. Well, spirit looks at it and says, okay, I'll give you a new house, and your house gets flooded, or your pipes burst or something, so you have to move to a new house. So it only knows what you're giving it. And that's why we need to be so careful about those little gardens. Here's the first step. Really obvious, right? Prepare the soil well. Who gardens here? Let me see your hands. I also garden. Okay. If you've ever grown anything, and especially in Las Cruces, that you got to tend that soil well. You have to prepare it. You have to prep it. And part of that is, when we're talking about soil, of course, we're using a metaphor, okay? But the soil is to prepare your mind. So first we must till that soil. You know what tilling is? Where you do it up like that. Back in the old days, they used to have donkeys or burros to till the soil. Now we have the rototillers. Or just get out there with a hoe, or better yet, hire some neighborhood kids. Let them do it, in my opinion. And what happens when you till the soil? Well, in this part of the country, you bring up surface rocks. You bring up rocks, you bring up roots, twigs, and all this debris you didn't even know had been down there. I like to think that this debris is really old thought patterns. It's the rocks of resentment. It's the roots of unforgiveness. And that's right. We have to forgive and let go. Otherwise, whatever is we're hanging on to is keeping us entrenched, is keeping that soil barren, is keeping the rocks in there. So what I like to do, I do a life review. This is what I did when I first started to learn to practice science of mind a couple of decades ago. I wrote on a piece of paper everyone that had ever hurt me, every person that had ever slighted me, made fun of me, made me feel bad, and I wrote their name down. And I wrote about the experience just briefly, and then I put in it that I forgive them and release them to their highest good as they love, bless, forgive, and release me. And if you want to know how to use that technique, come and see me later. It's a great technique that you use for 21 days, because 21 days is that magic number where our patterns can actually change, especially mentally. So in other words, we have to let go, and think. Just ask yourself on a daily basis, when you start thinking of your life, when you start going back doing that life review, which I would recommend doing it every morning or every afternoon or every evening, just at least once a day. Find out who you feel any blocks. Like if you think about someone and you feel a block, find out where that memory is, where that feeling is. Are you mad at your mother for not knowing your needs, your partner, your spouse for hurting you, all those people who laughed at you, maybe kept you afraid? Well, if you're still having those thoughts and they're still in your soil, then whose garden is it? It's their garden. I like that analogy of that photo of this hand that's holding this big rock, this big coal, and it's burning and glowing red, and then it says, not forgiving someone is like holding on to a giant hot coal that you're going to throw at them one day, Well, who's getting burned? You are. So in other words, till that soil in your mind, in your heart, wherever your garden is, wherever the garden of your good is, and get rid of the resentment, get rid of everything. I love the fact that they have that Disney movie out. I think it's Disney, right? Frozen? Yeah. What an awesome song to be teaching kids. Let it go. Let it go, let it go. It goes on and on. And I finally had to watch it because people keep talking about it all the time. And I thought, well, that's a pretty healthy message, to send to young girls, to send to young boys. Let it go. So in his book, one of my favorite books, After Ecstasy, The Laundry. Anybody read that? Yeah, it's by Jack Kornfield. I'd really recommend buying that book down at Coas. They have it used. After Ecstasy, The Laundry. What a great title, right? So he writes about this Lama who had been in complete silence for 7 years, complete silence, meditation, prayer every day for 7 years. And he was about to embark on a 7-year journey to begin teaching and speaking and helping. But before he did that, this is the first words out of his mouth after that 7-year silence. Can you imagine the challenge that would be? No Facebook, no. I'd go crazy. But this is what he said. The biggest surprise for me was how much I still needed to learn to trust. For years, I thought spiritual life was about some special state of perfection or enlightenment, but it really is about releasing attachment. Life doesn't depend on what you do. The big illusions we strive for, whether in the world or our spiritual life, they turn out to be false, he said. When you learn to let go, you find a tremendous faith in the ground of all things, that which is true before and after and all of our plans. Everything arises and passes. This is true perfection. I found that I could trust, the only thing I could trust. I like what he says. When you learn to let go, you find a tremendous faith in the ground of all things. Isn't that beautiful? When you finally learn to let go. This is a man who had been silent for 7 years, and what he learned was everything comes and passes as it is. The more that you let go and have faith that things work out, things are always working out for you. Well, that's the true, in his experience, was the true perfection of life, and I just really love that. So letting go is like bringing in, fresh topsoil, right? Bring in fresh topsoil mixed with self-compassion, forgiveness, self-love, sifting out all the things we no longer wish to experience. So step 2 is sowing. So in this garden of your mind, now it's time to plant the seeds of good that you want. But you have to ask yourself, what do you want more of? Do you want more happiness, more love, more prosperity, more friends, more community? Do you want people to understand you better? You want more food? You want a better car? What do you really want? Be specific about it. It's okay. It's okay to be specific about it. Then see yourself literally going out there, sowing those seeds, tamping down the soil, but be sure and plant them deep enough so they'll grow roots, right? Because without roots, it's going to just fly away when the first obstacle or challenge comes along. And water them with a hopeful expectancy. Or as Ernest Holmes said, he said, but if it is to become a fact in our experience, we must cultivate the soil and plant our seed before we shall reap a harvest. Going back to, Bonnie's reading. Ask any farmer. Now, I happen to have a source for green chili. If you need the source, maybe we can talk. I'll share it with you maybe. But she's the farmer who sells down at the farmer's market. And she's always down there. And I'm good friends with her sister, so I got a connection. So we go to her house every fall, and they have it like an assembly line. They have 2 roasters going and beer flowing, 10 in the morning, a little early for me. But they're having a good time. And but you ask any farmer, and what she'll tell you is, you can't expect a cantaloupe by sowing a green chili seed, right? Or maybe you can, I don't know. But in my experience, and I think most farmers will tell you. So the point of that is you've got to be specific about what you sow. Find out what you really want to have happen in your experience and plant that in your garden. And don't worry about how it's going to happen. I think we too often get boggled down by the doubt and the fear, even before the anxiety before something happens. Like we'll say something like, man, I would really love by the end of this year to be experiencing, a double in my income. Oh, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I guess I have to get more training. I have to apply for this job. I have to do that. Don't worry about that. Just trust that there's, a divine pattern of perfection that's always going on. Because if you think about it, the seed, the little tiny baby seed, it doesn't need to download, the new version of Windows, or it doesn't need to download an Excel spreadsheet, right? It knows what to do. Trust that your seeds will also know what to do. Then the third step is we tend. We must tend the garden of our good by weeding with affirmations, watering with faith, and cultivating with what Holmes called the enthusiastic expectancy. Every day, just a few minutes, do this at the end of your meditation. Open up that garden, the garden of your good. Go in there. Tend any weeds. Talk to your plants. Give them love. That's, the love of faith, the love of knowledge that it's already working out in the divine order. Now, harvesting is the fourth part. Harvesting sounds easy, doesn't it? I was talking with a friend just about a week ago, and she was from Michigan, and she said in the summer you have to lock your car doors up in Michigan, because if you don't, you'll go into your car, there'll be like bushels of zucchini squash, that everybody's trying to get rid of their okra and their zucchini because they have too many, and that doesn't happen here. I mean, us with our green chilies, we're not gonna be putting our green chili in someone else's car, And if you are, my car's out front. It's a black Subaru. I like the medium hot and the big Jims. When I was growing up, my tias, my aunts and my cousins would come over every December, and they'd make like 300 dozen tamales. I'm not exaggerating. They were like an assembly line. And so we would give them we would give some to the elderlies, and we were Catholic, so we'd have to take some down to the rectory for the priests. But beyond that, if you weren't there helping, you didn't get any. So we learned pretty quickly about that. So by caring about what we think and do, we're in tune with the divine growth that's already happening. But the way you begin is by you have to acknowledge the good that you already have. Like the people in the tribe that I told you about, they had forgotten to be grateful and thankful and acknowledge the good that they already had. Consequently, they took it for granted, and they became lazy, and they said, everything, we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to do anything, in other words, but you do have to do something. So just by acknowledging those little things that are already going well in our life, that are already working, that are already good, the seeds that we've already harvested, will simply, it's like getting fertilizer to what you've already sown. The other part of this, some of us think that's money, that good equals money. But, money is just a symbol of what we're already experiencing, the feeling of prosperity. You're already blessed. You're already abundant if you have time. Do you have time to go spend with a friend who might not be feeling well? I make a point every week. I go to hospice and play my flute down there because I feel that I'm abundantly blessed with talent and with people who make me flutes and with the time that I have to go do that. It's my way of sharing what I've harvested. You have time, you have energy, you have creativity, you can volunteer at church, you can volunteer wherever you want to. That is actually the harvest of abundance. You've already harvested that good. If you can walk on two legs, if you can be part of making someone's day just a little better, that's how we share our harvest. And of course, there's nothing better than sharing our harvest, right? Doesn't it make you excited? When you come into some money or you have some extra green chili that won't fit in your freezer, so you call your friend, I know I'm going on about green chili, but I didn't eat breakfast, so. So our smiles, our kindness, our time, and our talent, the old stuff that we clear out of the garage. Some of us have so much harvest that we have to get storage rooms, or we have rooms in our house that we don't go into, throw things in there and that we'll get to someday. Well, that's how much good that we've already harvesting. And by realizing you're already blessed with such abundance, it's proof that what we've sown and grown and cultivated is coming to reality. And like Dayo Hagwenda, the corn spirit story, when we take great care how we sow and grow and store, well, then we can share it with others. By that sharing, the good is increased by that act of gratitude. So pay attention to how you sow and care for your good and feed it every day with faith, honestly. The writer Steve Maraboli says, plant seeds of happiness, hope, and success and love, and it will come back to you in abundance. This is the law of nature. And I'm going to end this with this beautiful saying that I came across from the northern Arapaho tribe. I just love this. It says, the old people would gather words as they walked a sacred path across the earth, leaving nothing behind but prayers and offerings. Well, let's go into meditation now.